two giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things. But then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside.
Dillon Gabriel was not better than Shedeur Sanders in minicamp when the rookies was there. He was not better at minicamp or training camp when the veterans was there. He did not perform better than him during the game he was in. And it's time out for people with the cap.
But I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely.
Kevin Stefanski has finally reached his breaking point, and it's obvious he's no longer backing Dillon Gabriel. After yet another rough performance, Stefanski didn't hold back, admitting that Gabriel's showing simply wasn't up to standard. He even pointed out that some of Gabriel's decisions were among the worst of the entire game, with that disastrous second quarter standing out the most. These weren't just momentum slip-ups. They were momentum killers that left fans frustrated and teammates visibly shaken. This feels like a major turning point, because when a head coach publicly calls out his own quarterback, you know the situation has reached a whole new level of seriousness.
Very good so far. And this one is picked off and going back the other way. The Eagles, Andrew Makuba. A pick six the other way.
After seeing how the game played out, the contrast couldn't be clearer. Shedeur Sanders has shown he's the stronger option, while Dillon Gabriel faltered at every turn. From start to finish, Gabriel failed to deliver. No touchdowns, no explosive passes, and missed opportunities despite the advantage of playing behind the first-team defense. His errors didn't just stall drives, they completely flipped the momentum in favor of the opponent. To make matters worse, rather than taking responsibility for such a poor outing, Gabriel acted as if he was still firmly in control. He even went so far as to dismiss Shedeur Sanders, calling him an entertainer instead of a true competitor. That kind of attitude, especially after such a disastrous showing, makes you wonder if he has the mindset or leadership qualities needed to carry this team forward. G. Bush didn't hold back in his response, labeling Gabriel's remarks not just unnecessary, but outright reckless. For a quarterback who's been praised as having Skynet-level intelligence, the ability to process defenses with machine-like precision, and the cool execution of a Terminator, Gabriel's words and actions painted an entirely different picture. Instead of stepping up and proving himself when the stakes were high, he chose to take cheap shots at Shedeur Sanders, sparking unnecessary drama and stirring up Sanders' passionate fan base. In the end, Gabriel's behavior only raised more doubts about whether he can actually live up to the lofty expectations that have been set for him. But here's the real issue. This whole controversy stems directly from Kevin Stefanski's handling of the situation. From the beginning of training camp, his treatment of Shedeur Sanders has been anything but fair. Even when Sanders flashed moments of real talent, Stefanski refused to let him run with the first team, keeping him stuck on the sidelines while others got every opportunity. Then came that first game, where Shedeur gave fans a glimpse of what he could be, and the excitement around him started to grow. Instead of embracing that momentum, Stefanski shut it down. He made it clear Sanders wouldn't be stepping onto the field anytime soon, brushing it off with the claim that his focus was on developing the entire roster, not just one player. But the way he said it felt less like a balanced coaching philosophy and more like a calculated move to keep Sanders hidden away. That decision, and the stubbornness behind it, is what truly lit the spark of this controversy. Now let's hear the exact words Stefanski used.
Yeah, pleased with Shedeur, pleased with the offense. Again, not perfect, plenty that we can work on, but I thought the guys did a really nice job of Shedeur and operating, the guys making plays, so again, a ton to teach off of.
And if Stefanski's earlier statements weren't controversial enough, the reports had escalated things even further. Sources suggested that Stefanski had no real plans to include Shedeur Sanders in the team's vision going forward. For fans, this revelation was nothing short of stunning. After all the excitement, the glimpses of brilliance, and the spark Shedeur has injected into the franchise, the head coach still doesn't see him as the answer. That's not just a setback for Sanders personally, it's a gut punch to a fan base that's been loudly calling for him to take control of the offense. The bigger question now is what this means for both Shedeur and the Browns. If Stefanski himself isn't buying into Sanders as a leader, then it casts serious doubt over his role in the team's future. And once that doubt takes hold, it opens the door to the possibility of an entirely new path, one that could reshape not only Shedeur's career, but the direction of the entire organization. All signs began to point toward one clear reality. Kevin Stefanski was actively working to shut down the growing buzz around Shedeur Sanders. Reports even hinted that Stefanski himself was behind a misleading narrative that Sanders had picked up an injury. That's when Stephen A. Smith stepped into the conversation, refusing to let the story go unchecked. He flat out accused Stefanski of inventing the entire Shedeur is hurt angle. According to Stephen A., this wasn't about protecting a young quarterback. It was about giving the coach a convenient excuse to keep Sanders off the field while avoiding backlash from fans. The sudden claims of an oblique issue raised eyebrows, especially since they seemed to appear out of nowhere. Stephen A. didn't hold back, saying it was nothing more than a smoke and mirrors tactic, a deliberate strategy to keep Shedeur hidden deep in the depth chart.
To start the season, but I do view him as somebody who could position himself to be that QB2. And if he's not in that position, but he's playing well, we know that the reason that would be the case is because they don't want people clamoring for Shedeur Sanders prematurely and putting that added pressure on the organization. Because we both know the coach Stefanski and the GM Berry is on thin ice right now, even though it might not be their fault considering the owner that they're working for. But it is what it is.
Stephen A. zeroed in on the depth chart as the clearest evidence to back his claim, calling it the undeniable smoking gun. In his view, the Browns never had any real intention of allowing Shedeur Sanders to rise through the ranks. Had Sanders been given the opportunity to build on the momentum from his earlier performance, there would have been no logical reason to keep him on the bench. But instead, just as the team was closing in on crucial roster decisions, the sudden announcement of this so-called injury appeared, perfectly timed to push him out of the competition without triggering an even bigger backlash.
And that comes with going up against competition. Of course, second and third units and all of that stuff come into play. But when you're the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, had he shown up this weekend and balled out again, playing 45 or more snaps like he did in the first game and putting up similar, if not better numbers, I think that would have boded very, very well for him.
And the driving force behind all of Stefanski's moves seemed to boil down to one thing: pushing Dillon Gabriel as the hero. But that plan fell flat. Gabriel's performance was anything but heroic. He struggled from start to finish, failing to reach the end zone or create any real momentum. Even with the benefit of a strong first-team defense backing him, his mistakes were the most memorable part of his outing. No touchdowns, no standout throws, nothing to convince fans that he was prepared to take center stage. What left people even more puzzled, though, was Gabriel's attitude once the game was over. Dillon Gabriel's struggles had become so glaring that Kevin Stefanski couldn't avoid addressing them in his pregame press conference. While he initially tried to highlight the Browns' overall strong standing, the conversation quickly turned to the quarterback situation. Stefanski acknowledged that Gabriel was directly at fault for 2 costly turnovers, both stemming from poor choices on his part. Those errors, Stefanski admitted, threw off the entire rhythm of the game and played a major role in derailing the team's momentum.
2 giveaways really were the difference there in that first half, because I thought we were doing some really good things, but then we got that takeaway, had a takeaway negated by an offside.
At the end of the day, the picture couldn't be clearer. Dillon Gabriel's performance has forced even Kevin Stefanski to acknowledge the cracks in his game. For weeks, the narrative revolved around protecting Gabriel and insisting he was the guy to lead this team. But those costly turnovers and shaky decision-making have spoken louder than any coach's words. When a head coach is compelled to admit that his quarterback's mistakes directly disrupted the team's flow, it signals just how dire the situation has become. The Browns now find themselves at a crossroads. Do they continue investing in a quarterback who has yet to prove he can rise to the moment? Or do they finally turn to Shedeur Sanders, the player fans have been demanding to see? This is no longer just about stats on a scoreboard. It's about confidence, trust, and the direction of the franchise. Gabriel's missteps have left teammates frustrated, fans disillusioned, and critics with even more ammunition. Meanwhile, Sanders' presence lingers in the background, representing both hope and controversy. If Stefanski truly wants to steady this team and silence the growing doubt, he may have no choice but to give Shedeur his shot. Because if things continue on the same path, the Browns risk not just losing games, but losing the belief of their players and their fan base. So the big question remains, will Stefanski stay loyal to Gabriel despite his struggles, or will he finally hand the keys to Shedeur Sanders and see what he can do? What do you think about all this? Do you believe Kevin Stefanski is finally realizing that Dillon Gabriel might not be the answer? Or is he just buying more time before making the tough decision? Should Shedeur Sanders get his chance to step in and prove himself? Or do you think the Browns are right to stay patient with Gabriel? And most importantly, do you see this as a coaching issue, a quarterback issue, or a bit of both? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We want to hear what you think.